welcome to another Cello Tip Thursday live stream. So excited to see you all. Hello in the chat here on YouTube, and also hello to my dolls on Instagram. I'm trying a new lighting scheme today, trying to spice things up, add some color, and let me know what you think if you like it. I think it's kind of cool and relaxing, which is how you should feel when you practice. Hello, I'm seeing in the chat that we have dolls joining us all around the world, and I think that is so incredible. Truly, thank you for being here. And Chelly and I are here to help you today. And I have one exciting bit of news I just found out today. When I logged on to stream to YouTube, we've reached 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, and that is incredible. So for those of you on Instagram, if you didn't know, Chelly and I have so many videos on YouTube, many of which are longer versions of what you see on Instagram. So check it out, the Cello doll. Everything on socials is the Cello doll. So thank you to everyone on YouTube that has been here and so supportive of our community and Cello doll projects. I am so excited that we have made it to 5,000, and let's just keep it going. Let's get to 10. Why not? You know, we always want to keep growing and reaching more cello-loving dolls. So today, I am here to help you all with your tips and to show some tricks for your practicing time. Open-ended, I would love to answer any of your questions. If you even have questions related to the music industry, I would love to offer the knowledge I know. So it can be cello-based, it can be music industry-based, whatever you would like. And I hope you all are having a wonderful Thursday. Where did February go? I have no idea. Oops. Contribute what you would like in the chat for any questions you have. So let us see. I'm going to check here on Instagram. Are there any questions? Hello. Awesome. And also feel free to share any practice room wins, any successes you have, anything that might be challenging. Really want to encourage a safe community here. So whatever you want to share, Chelly and I would love to hear it. And you're here with dolls that I really think would be encouraging and supportive as well. That's the kind of community I value here, one that is accepting and encouraging. So we have our first question. Thank you so much. Could you explain how to create and maintain beautiful long double stops, especially with the A and D string? Great. So this is a question about double stops. For those of you who might not know, a double stop is when we play two notes at the same time on two different strings. The difference between that is a chord usually has 3 or more notes, and in string player language, when it's 2 notes, we call that a double stop. So you might have just heard me tuning. We play double stops to tune our instruments. So that's an example of a double stop, just open strings. And then we can add notes. Double stops, just something I made up. So how do we create and maintain a beautiful tone? Well, as I've said often, the cello strings are not created the same. So for A and D, A is the thinner string and the higher string. D is a little thicker. And both for tone quality and intonation, I highly recommend having a little more weight on the lower string. So whenever you're playing a double stop, whatever the lowest string is, give that a little more natural bow arm weight and allow the A string. The A string is going to be very resonant on its own, so you don't have to work too hard. If I were to just glue my bow to the string and just lay a whole bunch of weight evenly on the A and D string, you will notice it's going to sound kind of harsh on top. So it sounds a little blaring, kind of like some car horns. So I would recommend getting a healthy tone on your lowest string first. So just isolate the lowest string. Again, this is our D string. And I'm improvising for those of you who are joining a little later. I'm just making up a little double stop chorale. So making sure the tone is healthy. And then I would add the top string, but think of it like a piano dynamic. So that sounds pretty balanced, kind of a dolce, sweet character. And if you wanted to have a little more heft, then just add a little more weight to the A string. Again, the A string is so resonant on its own that you really don't need to work too hard when you're playing it in a double stop. So let's try maybe like a mezzo forte dynamic. So we talked about weight, putting more weight on the lower string. And another thing is I am using, I would say, a medium speed in my bow, and I'm using a longer length of bow. And if I were to use something that's slow and heavy, chunkier sound. It sounds maybe a little growly. That might be necessary. Let's say I'm in a giant concert hall that seats a couple hundred people and I really need to project, then maybe I would use a bow like that. But if I'm not playing in a big concert like that and I'm just practicing the technique, I would want to use a little more bow, a little less weight, so that the strings can really resonate and I can tap into kind of their natural resonance. Because you have to understand, if you put a lot of weight on a vibrating string, you are going to limit how wide it can vibrate. And again, sometimes you need that if you want a sound that is kind of like a laser beam to the back of a concert hall. You will need to dig in your natural weight a little bit more. But if you play like that all the time, it's going to sound constrained and tight because you don't have a big acoustic space. So right now, I'm basically in my music room, which is kind of the size of an office, like an at-home office. So I don't need a lot to project in here. So again, when I know I'm kind of deviating from double stops for a second, but with the bow use, you have to think about the space you're in. So again, big space, lots of room to fill your sound. You are going to dig in and want to, what we call, project your sound more. So I'm just going to, again, go back to practicing the technique. Everything I'm telling you is going to be adapted for a bigger space, even if you dig in the weight. So let's review. Let's do a recap. More weight on your lower string. Don't glue your bow to the strings with equal weight. It's going to sound unbalanced. Imbalanced? I had a brain fart. I'm pretty sure it's imbalanced. It's not going to be balanced if you are just laying equal weight on both strings. The A string is going to heavily dominate. And also for intonation, you do want to have a deeper listening to the lower voice. So we practice the lower note, and then we lightly add the A string. So that gives us a nice, healthy resonant sound with both voices. And everything we're talking about translates to different pairs. So if I'm doing D and G, now I need to adjust my weight a little bit. You notice I didn't have enough weight in the G string, so it didn't sound right away. There you go. So there is a subtle difference even between the string pairs as we go lower into the cello. And of course, the most weight is going to be needed on the C string when you're doing G and C string double stop pairs. So I tilted a little too much on the G string. You heard there was a little bump at the end, so let's do that again. Again, it's not quite. Okay, so I'm kind of tackling both my tone quality and my intonation at the same time. Checking on my first finger with a perfect fourth with my open D string. So let's start with the lower voice. So I need to lean more into my bow changes. So now let's add. Still, open C is it's a little bit of a tricky beast. You really got to experiment with leaning into that thickest and heaviest strings. improv here. I know I'm being super picky, but there we go. There. So, this is a general tip. If you notice when I stopped, I analyzed, and I tried to make a diagnosis or theory about what was wrong or what I wasn't happy with. So I stopped. I said, man, I wasn't happy with the fourth interval between E and A. So that was an intonation thing, and also my bow changes, I wanted them to be more connected. So my theory was a wider hand shape, kind of making a little more space, and leaning right before the bow change, really being in contact with my bow weight and the string, and then I tried it out. And if it didn't work, then I would kind of repeat the process. And oftentimes, when I'm working with students, they'll stop and they'll go, or can I do that again? And I'll say, well, why do you want to do it again? And what do you want to do differently since you said you're going to try this again? I had a teacher tell me once, you have to be your own detective. And I love that word, being a detective in your practice room, because that's actually going to really cause you to open your ears a lot more and to be more accountable for yourself. Thinking, well, if you don't like this sound, why? Or if this is out of tune, why is that? So it actually really makes you open your ears a lot more, solving the mystery of being the best cellist you can be or the best musician you can be. So that's really important. If you need some extra encouragement or motivation when you sit down to practice, think about that. You as your own detective. So, Woodside Story on on YouTube. Thank you for your awesome question. I know you asked for the A and D string, but you got some bonus content. I went down all the strings for you, and you're most welcome. Thank you for contributing. All right. Yes, being a detective. Again, that was an incredible mentor of mine, Peter Howard, phenomenal cellist. I believe he was the one that told me that idea of being a detective, or imagine, he also said, imagine your teacher is like a little figure on your shoulder. In some pop culture, our conscious is like an angel and a little devil. You might have seen that in cartoons. Imagine your teacher's on your shoulder. What would they say? What would they notice? And it just encourages you to open your ears up. So let's see. If you have a question, please feel free to type it into the chat. I would love to answer your questions. Just check in here on Instagram. Cool. Oops. There we go. Awesome. Yeah, so let me elaborate a little bit. I'll keep an eye on the chats for another question. But one thing I did want to touch on is I mentioned leaning into the bow. So in terms, hi to new people on Instagram. Hello. Y'all are so awesome. Yeah, if there's a question there in the chat, if you could phrase it a little differently, I would greatly appreciate it. From group, I'm not sure what you mean by group. Maybe you mean the double stops. If you could ask that in another way, I would really appreciate it so I can help. But in the meantime, I'm going to talk about the leaning. Leaning, what do I mean by when I say lean into the string? Well, this talks about the idea of having our natural weight going into the string and down into the cello. So I'm at a neutral level and I'm sinking down. A lot of people try to push from above, and that's actually much more tiring. It has a lot more tension on your muscles. And so I always encourage a low bow arm elbow. And to imagine you are pulling the string down and through the instrument. Obviously that's not going to happen, but you want to think about that as leaning downward. And when you get to the tip, my weight is really far away. My arm is really far away. So you're leaning your weight in more. And my hand is leaning into the stick as well. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like the background. Something new for the live stream, adding some lights and colors. And so I have my bow hand kind of leaning into the stick this way. So if you're working on your bow hand, be careful that you don't have the bow hand going this way, because it's actually pulling your weight away from the instrument. It's pulling it out of the instrument as opposed to leaning into the string. We want to put our weight into the instrument, not pull it out. And again, if you are suspending your elbow, that's also going to take your arm out of the string. If you raise the elbow, it's kind of a snake chasing its tail, where if you have your elbow up, your weight's coming out of the string, and because you don't feel that contact, you're going to push more, and that's going to create a lot of unnecessary tension in this part of your arm. So we want to have a low elbow, having our hand pivoting into the stick. So it's kind of this motion, like a windshield wiper. So you can start with that, just some loosey-goosey windshield wipers, and then freeze and go back a little bit. So windshield wipers, back and forth, freeze. Now that's a little extreme, right? So we want to relax the bow hand a little bit. And another variation, you can keep the bow hand solid, like you're about to play, and just do little wiggles. Freeze, back and forth, freeze. Okay? So that's kind of a way you can lean in with your weight. And if you notice, when I go to the tip, I open up my arm to get a little more leverage. Again, my arm's far away. And we push back in. So we open and close. Open. And when you open, I'm raising my arm a hair. This is another tip I got from an awesome teacher. You can raise your bow arm a hair to kind of get a little above the string. A hair. Again, a hair, and it's bow hairs. But so you want to raise it a little bit. So you can lean into the stick, push, and you close back in. Okay? So I see a lot going on in this chat. Cool. Music groups. Apocalyptica. I love Apocalyptica. Okay, so yes, I love Apocalyptica. I saw them mentioned in the chat. They're a huge inspiration of mine. Awesome. I see lots of awesome questions. Fantastic. So So kind of controlling the stick, controlling the bow stick is a question I see in the chat, having more bow control. And honestly, a lot of what I just discussed, being in touch with your bow arm weight, if you are able to do that and have that low elbow, and again, always ask yourself, am I in the instrument or am I coming away from the instrument? So am I low and in the instrument, or is my hand going this way and pulling me away? Is my arm raising up and taking me away? You want to do what you can to stay low and cozy in the instrument. And that's going to give you so much control with your bow. And it's going to cause you, it will cause you to have to work less. Great questions. Okay, so I did see a question about who have I studied with? This is an excellent question. And actually something I haven't talked a whole lot about. I've had many, many mentors growing up. So I'm going to kind of start with college level. Preparing for college, I worked with William Rounds. He's a cellist in Boston. He's a freelance musician, and he frequently plays with the Boston Pops and the Boston Esplanade Orchestra. So he was so crucial in giving me practicing strategies right before college. A lot of tricks that I use in my teaching and I still use in practicing today, a lot of them came from him. He was a very crucial mentor in telling me how to practice efficiently and effectively. And then for my undergraduate, I worked with Michael Reynolds, who was in the Muir String Quartet. And so with him, I learned a lot of major pieces of the cello repertoire, and he gave me a lot of knowledge about how to play certain composers, how to play music from different time periods. He gave me a lot of knowledge in terms of how to play these legendary concertos and sonatas accurately, both in what time period they were written. You know, we play Mozart much more differently than Prokofiev or Shostakovich for a reason, you know, learning these styles. And then for my master's, I worked with Mihail Jojatu, who is in the Boston Symphony. And he really, he was so crucial in teaching me how to be an extroverted performer. And he really taught me how to trust myself. That was something that was so important for me to learn, was how to trust myself. And it was a huge growing point for me, and probably one of the hardest growing points. And you know, to this day, I still get a little emotional about it, because he really changed that part of my life in a huge way. So that was Mihail. And then I worked with Yehuda Hanani, who was my most recent teacher. And in between, I also, during the summers, worked with Peter Howard, who I mentioned previously. Peter Howard, for a long time, was principal of the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. And he worked with Rostropovich. He worked with a lot of the greats that we know of today, who unfortunately are no longer with us. He worked with them a lot. And he was so big, again, in encouraging me to be an extroverted performer. My bow hand and how I view the bow is basically all thanks to Peter Howard. Like, he saved my bow hand from a lot of tendinitis, actually. Risky things that could have given me tendinitis, he really helped me with. And to this day, knock on wood, I'm just gonna gently tap Chelly because I won't knock on him. I haven't had tendinitis. And that's nothing to be said. You know, you can have incredible technique and body self-awareness, but if you overdo it, you will give yourself tendinitis. So he taught me how to utilize my body weight, to use gravity and what I have. And so did Yehuda Hanani. He kind of reinforced that when I was learning a ton of repertoire and wasn't always playing efficiently. You know, he really held me to a standard of playing efficiently and not muscling when I got tired or things got difficult. And also, Yehuda Hanani is an incredible, he would laugh at me, but I called him a Bach genius because he just was. You know, he saw Bach in a way that is so eye-opening. And since working with him, Bach I see so many more things. And as a result of that, I see so much more in other pieces too. Because if you think about it, Bach is one of the original composers. Yes, people were composing before Bach, of course, but in terms of classical music rules, Bach really set a standard. And so everything that came after Bach kind of followed a lot of his rules for a really long time. And he was ahead of his time too, because you can find a lot of later techniques that weren't really a thing. He used them. He was so ahead of his time. So Yehuda Hanani really taught me the value of Bach and how to analyze Bach on such a deep level that's how I analyze a lot of music right now. So I know it was a long question, or a long answer. You had a short question, I had a long answer. But I think it's important to kind of tell you dolls about my lineage. And if you ever have an opportunity to have a lesson with any of the teachers I just mentioned, do it. Do it. They all have something great to offer. And if you ever are thinking about going to college and working with any of those cellists, you're more than welcome to write to me and I can tell you more about my experiences. So, all right, I'm going to do my best to get through all these awesome questions. Okay, Is there a place for cello in non-classical music? I stumbled on this. I would like to learn the cello, but it's pretty expensive to start. Okay. Thank you so much, Michael on YouTube. Well, I will tell you right now, for those of you who don't know, I am in Las Vegas, and I actually play quite a bit of pop, rock, jazz. I play, it's so versatile, and that makes it so exciting for me because that's something I've wanted to do more of, is to branch out. And you know, with Cello Doll, I do a lot of genre fusion on my own, and I've wanted to do that in the field. So that is something that is really cool about being in a city like Las Vegas. I play electric cello a lot, and that is a lot of, again, rock and pop covers. I'm in a couple electric string quartets out here. So there definitely is a place for cello, not in classical music. I mean, also look at Apocalyptica, look at Two Cellos. They do a lot of stuff outside of classical music and in classical music with their own spin on it. And they're highly successful, and they tour around the world performing. Dream goals. So there definitely is a place. And it's a great question too, because there's a big project that I've been setting a foundation for, and I've kind of been keeping it under wraps, but it's not classical. I mean, there's little snippets of classical here and there, but I think there's a need for the cello to branch out and to be known for, oh, cool. Okay, so you are an electric bassist. I love it. What I would tell you to do is to just look. There are a lot of bands that use cello too. One that I've been studying, Panic at the Disco, they use a cello in a lot of their songs. And the cello is a very versatile instrument because we have such a low and high register. We can go all the way down to C. If you have a tuning geared pegs, it's very easy for me to actually extend my range. There we go. So I definitely think string instruments are very versatile, and you hear them. So I challenge you, Michael, to listen to some of your favorite bands that you think might use strings, and to also look at ways cello is used in a not classical way. So two cellos, Apocalyptica, Tina Guo is another big one. There are so many people out there that are expanding what the cello can do. It's a very exciting time to be a musician interested in other genres. So in Vegas, there's a huge niche for it. Again, a lot of it will also depend on where you live. So if you want to play cello, being savvy of the music scene and knowing what is out there and knowing what type of musical styles are popular, and if there are string players that have a lot of performance opportunities. So familiarize yourself with groups out there who are making an impact already, and see if there's anything similar in your town. Again, Vegas is a huge entertainment capital, so if you know a metropolis like that and you're close, you know, do some research, see if there's any live shows going on where you might be able to see something. As for the expensive cellos are expensive, I'm not gonna lie to you, they are. I would recommend renting one, or, as you just said, an electric one. A lot of string shops will allow you to rent for a base monthly fee, and that's kind of a way to have a cello without paying thousands of dollars right away for one. And it's not really worth spending that kind of money if you don't know which one you want. So I would honestly recommend, I tell a lot of first-time cellists to rent so they can learn the technique and have an affordable option. And then when they're much more fluent in playing and performing, they can go try out cellos. Because if you don't really know how to play and you go to try out cellos, yes, you will make sound, you can play on them, but you might not get into their full potential until you have the technique. So if you want a more affordable option, renting is a huge option. So let's go on to another one from YouTube. I'm trying to give people a chance that haven't asked a question yet. So I see you there on Instagram, but I'll try to circle back to you. I want to give everyone new a chance to ask a question. Hello from Japan. Oh, Japan. I want to go to, that's on my bucket list. I want to go to Japan so badly. I love it. I want to go so badly. So cool that you're there. Awesome. Showing the hand shape for vibrating in higher positions. Okay, vibrato in higher positions. I'm guessing you would mean fourth position and maybe higher, like thumb position. To down here in first position. We can have a cozier elbow for vibrato. But as you get higher, you have the shoulder of the cello that can be an obstacle if we don't have a high enough elbow. So you need, I'm gonna tilt so Instagram can see too. You have to tilt, you have to raise your elbow so that you can be pretty much parallel to the floor. And that's gonna give enough space underneath so that the shoulder is not a problem. It's not an issue. I often see people trying to vibrate like this and they hit the shoulder and it makes their vibrato very narrow and tight. So I would raise the elbow and make sure you're not doing this or you're not doing this. You don't want to dip in your wrist or a bump in the wrist. So this is straight and it is relaxed and supple. It's not flexing or tight, but it is going to move as a unit. It will move as a unit. So I would start with an easier finger. So if I'm in first position, 1 or 2. Let's start with 1. So I have my high elbow, and if I'm in 4th position, all 4 fingers down, it looks like this, and I do open my hand back a little bit for some vibrato, so I get extra leverage, just a little bit. If I don't have a lot of time, or it's a fast piece, I'm not gonna keep readjusting my hand shape. I might just go, I might just do some little wiggles in that position. And again, you can see my arms even shaking back here when I do vibrato. Cellists vibrate with their arm, unlike violin. They do a wrist vibrato. So there's that. And then when you go up higher, you notice my finger looks vertical when I vibrate. That's going to allow me to get more pad. Again, I have a high elbow, and my finger looks like I'm just sliding vertically down. It's kind of that shape. It's this shape. You can do this to kind of open up your arm. I'm going on the inside of my string, like I'm plucking. And I slide up and down like this. And if you do it a shorter distance, that's going to warm up your vibrato arm joint. So that's kind of my advice to you. And if you're going to do the 4th finger, don't forget to have the 3rd finger supporting as well. Pinky, we vibrate with 3 and 4 together because the pinky is smaller, weaker, less to stand on. So we often vibrate that one as a pair. And when in doubt, check that that elbow is high enough, because if your elbow's low, you can hear it sounds kind of weak and strained. You can even do that. Raise the elbow up and down. You're most welcome. So I'm just kind of raising and lowering the elbow until I find that sweet spot. And that will also train your body to adjust if you tend to have a droopy elbow. I did see a question about If you can't watch the whole live stream, that's absolutely okay. It is going to be available after the fact on my YouTube channel. So if you're on Instagram watching and you go to my bio link, go to the link on my page, you'll see a button for my YouTube channel, and I have all of my live streams there. All of them are saved because I know I love it when you dolls watch and contribute questions. I just know, you know, not everyone's always free at this time, so they are available on YouTube. Now, I did see an interesting question about characters. I hope I'm understanding this question correctly because I think it's really cool. All right. Something about let's see. I believe there's something about making the cello sound spooky. Some ways to make cello. I saw something mentioned about a horror movie. Strings are often used in horror movies because they sound creepy. They can sound creepy, not all the time. I hope I understand that question correctly. Ways to make the cello sound spooky. Excuse me. One of my favorite techniques is called solponticello, and that translates to playing on the bridge. Solponticello, playing on the bridge. So, and I'm combining that with a technique called tremolo, which is when you shake the bow back and forth very fast with really, really tiny bows. And it's just kind of this feeling of shaking your arm back and forth. You want to relax. You don't want to clench and get tight in your elbow or inside your bow palm. Just kind of shaking your arm gently back and forth. You can start slow. And then we move. It's very creepy on the lower strings. I love that one. I believe I used that in my album in a couple spots. New album, by the way, if you don't know it, on Spotify and Apple Music, Escaping Darkness by the Cello Doll. Lots of creepy cello. It's all creepy cello. So I recommend go check that out if you like this kind of spookier side of cello playing. So you can just imagine somebody kind of walking down a hallway, a dark hallway, not sure what's going to happen. You often hear strings in the background going. Because it is kind of a creepy, suspenseful sound, you can also play slowly solponticello, and you can kind of make a creepy, ghost-like melody. And you're getting kind of these higher notes with the creepy lower note. Kind of combines some extra what we call partials, where you're hearing overtones. You're hearing more parts to the note instead of, you hear higher pitches. Okay, so that's kind of a creepy thing you can do. Another thing that can be ethereal or creepy is using harmonics. So they can sound kind of airy and bright, or they can be kind of creepy too. If you do what we call a false harmonic, so kind of reminds me of like a ghostly music box using harmonics to make a melody, as opposed to kind of these open, bright. These sound more bright and open. So just a couple cool cello techniques there. Okay, another question I saw further back. Can you demonstrate how to adjust the left hand? Oh, you both asked the same question. Vibrato in higher positions. Yeah, cool. You both are on the same page. That's awesome. Yeah, it's tricky because it's not exactly the same as vibrating in first, second, or third position. The mechanics are similar, but the angle is what's very different. So, again, if you want to vibrate in higher positions, when we're lower, you could lean back a little bit to get a little more pad. But when you're up high, that's really extreme. So we went from being kind of horizontal, maybe tilted back a little bit, to basically being vertical. If you try to do it here, you don't get a lot of range. So you can think about your finger as bobbing up and down, kind of like that, but your pad stays on the string, bobbing up and down, and that's going to encourage your arm to move. And when we're in thumb position, our fingers are kind of vertical already to begin with. Hand shape needed, kind of that vertical. Oh, hello! My friend Fiddlin' Phil! Oh, okay, hold on. He probably didn't expect this. I'm sorry, Phil. If you all don't know Fiddlin' Phil, he is an Instagram, TikTok extraordinaire. Such fun comedy, teaching. Phil also plays banjo, violin, so many instruments, and oh, thank you, Phil. Such a sweetheart. I adore Phil. I'm a big fan. So if you don't know Fiddlin' Phil, that's Fiddlin'. Go check out Phil. He's laughing. Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah. Big fan of Phil. Still needs to tutor me in some chopping, and I want to lay down some Cello skills I might not be super comfortable with yet. I appreciate you too, Phil. I want those tips sometime. We're gonna get together and jam. He's gonna help me with my chop. Maybe learn some. I would love to do a fiddle tune with Phil. Accompany the fiddle and Phil. Also, Phil, if you ever want to make a string ensemble, because your name is Phil, it can also be short for Philharmonic, so you can be the fiddle and Phil. Just say, yes. Yeah, so check out Fiddle and Phil if you don't know them. They are awesome. And you can have the Fiddle and Phils just saying the Philharmonic or just Phil and grateful guests. Awesome musician. Go check him out. Pretty please. Pretty please. Okay. More questions. Is it ooh, this is a good question. Is it easier to vibrate on the higher strings than the lower ones? That's a very good question. I think it might be slightly easier. I think it's because for a couple things. We were talking earlier, the lower strings are thicker, so they need a little more love and attention because they require a little bit, just a little bit more work. So we've been talking about a lot of that with the bow, but with the left hand, you need to make sure your elbow comes up and around just enough so you feel comfortable on the C and G string. With the A string, we can get away with being a little lower with our elbow. But if you keep that low elbow down here when you're on the C string, I'm doing vibrato, but I don't really hear it because it's not wide enough. I'm going to play that again with a sunken elbow. You don't really hear the vibrato. So making sure you have that higher elbow so you can keep your hand shape consistent. The elbow is what adjusts for you. It kind of raises and lowers. Your hand shape shouldn't really change. Oh, Michael hears the vibrato. Well, it's not as full. It's not as full and lush and I'm going to tell you, it doesn't feel as comfortable. It feels very tight. And the other thing I will say too, because it's a thicker string, you ought to make sure you have good contact. I don't mean contact this way. You never press the string in between the finger and thumb. That is squeezing on both sides, and that's going to give you a lot of problems, if not a crazy hand cramp, and then goodness forbid anything worse. So think about sinking down, but not drooping with the elbow. So it's kind of your whole arm can sink in a little bit, and the thumb is just a guide. So make sure, because if you're not fully settled in the string, you're hearing that it's not sounding right away. So what I would recommend doing is holding a solid note and then shaking that arm. Let's do 2. Shaking the arm. 3. And then 3 and 4, because 4 we gotta do a pair. So I'm making sure I have a healthy, clear tone to start, and that's gonna tell me my elbow's nice and high and I have enough weight in the string. And when that is clean and clear, then I shake for the vibrato. I hope that helps. My dolls, thank you so much again for a wonderful live stream for the end of February. I love it when we all come together and we can discuss cello, things in the music industry, and to just have a safe space to share. If I can use my platform to say something kind of sentimental and a little more personal to me, social media lately, which I think is very unfortunate, I see less and less of people sharing the journey to things. We often see the final product, and there's a lot of work and dedication that goes into getting those final products. So it's really important to me to have a space with you all where it's okay to say, you know, I don't like X, Y, and Z, or this isn't perfect, but I'm working towards it. Could you help me out? Because you see a lot of these accounts, and you know, some of my posts are included in that, where I play this flashy, difficult thing, and it's not something that happens overnight. But when you log onto a social and you see, oh, she seemed to have posted this video overnight, it can be, I don't want it to be discouraging for people who want to learn the cello. You know, it does take time, it does take dedication. Oh, thank you so much. I love, thank you. That's so sweet. Kind words in the chat. Thank you so much. But I really want to make this live stream a chance for us to come together and to talk about the process and to be transparent about the process. That's very important to me because I don't think that's always portrayed. I'm very lucky that I can do what I love for a living. So a lot of it does require me to share, you know, a lot of difficult things and to play top notch and to do my best. But this has come after years and years of not getting it right. And I still am striving to improve and expand my horizons and to be fluent on cello and to be a musician and to learn wherever I can. So that's my little piece. It's okay for it to not be perfect, but I want to give you dolls the tools to work and to grow as I try to grow too. So again, time, dedication, and most of all, love. That's going to get you the results you are hoping for. The love is so important to always be in touch with that and to know that the hours are long. To learn an instrument, it's not easy. I've been there. You know, some days it doesn't feel easy. I totally get it, and that is okay. So if you need someone to tell you that, this is me saying it. It's okay. It's okay for it to not feel perfect. And, you know, I want to create an authentic space for you all here on social. So thank you for joining me in that and for being here today. One more time, if you haven't seen it already, my album Escaping Darkness is coming up on 3 months already. I don't believe it. It's available on all major streaming platforms. I know a lot of people have asked about Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music. It is all up there. And yeah, oh, thank you. Thank you all so much. I love reading your encouragement in the comments. That really means a lot to me, so thank you. Yeah, go check it out. Escaping Darkness by the Cello Doll. It's a creepy CD meets kind of like a soundtrack. It's kind of a soundtrack of a spooky fairy tale that I kind of made up in my head. And if you listen through the album in order, it's kind of like a soundtrack meets a crossover album. You have popular music, you have soundtrack music, and you have cello doll compositions, classical music. It's all in one CD, blending the lines and the genre borders. So thank you all. We'll see you next month, the last Thursday of the month for our next live stream. Bye, my dolls. We'll see you soon.